Hello, my name is Tammy Richardson. I am a teacher at Kaimiloa Elementary School. I'm one of the mentors for our Visible Learner group, which is after school. We're called the Powerful Thinkers. The reason why we developed this group is some of the students came to Mrs. Pihu and I to ask if they could create a Powerful Thinkers group. And they wanted to share visible learning, and they wanted to share or teach about the GLOs. So we said, sure, since you want to do it, we'll do it. So we have about 18 students from different classes, all in the 4th grade. They are working on presentations, posters, videos, and slides.
I wanted to become a Powerful Thinker member because I wanted to show people what a visible learner is. I wanted to show people, I wanted to help people understand what they can't do. And because I actually felt like that once when I was once in the pit. And when I heard about the Powerful Thinkers and I found out about the pit, then I learned that if I joined the Powerful Thinkers, I could show people and help them understand faster than I did. It makes me feel like a powerful student.
Okay, so the pit is actually a visual representation of the what we call the learning journey that the kids have to go through. So it's a way for them to see where they are in their learning. So if the teacher sets a clear expectation of what they want the kids to learn through either their learning target or through their criteria and rubric, then the kid knows where they need to be at the end and the process that they need to go through. So in order to reach that expectation, they sometimes go through struggle time where they're challenged, which is what we want the kids to do. So in their minds, they need to start using all of the capabilities and dispositions of a good learner, which are our general learner outcomes, our GLOs. So they use their GLOs in order to meet that challenge and meet that struggle time and make their way out of the pit, because the pit is that struggle, in order to climb out and to meet the expectations of the teacher.
If I'm stuck in the pit, do you have strategies to get you out of the pit?
Yes. Just look at examples.
Look at examples, exactly. Okay? Look around you.
I use the stuck chart, which is steps that help me get out of when I'm struggling.
What I do when I get stuck is make sure first thing I look at the learning target and understand it. After, if I still can't figure out what I'm supposed to do, I look back at my notes and anything that has an example to make sure I get it. If still not, I ask 3 peers, and if I still can't really get it, I ask the teacher, and then that's the last thing I do.
Now, it's really interesting. In the beginning of the year, the idea of the pit was really tied with perseverance or persisting. So I would tell them it's hard right now, but you have to keep going. It feels, we kind of talked about what it feels like to be in the pit, and they were like, oh, it's frustrating, I hate it, I wish it stopped, and things like that. And we were talking about how it's okay to feel like that. But to be honest, in the beginning, there were kids giving up all over the place. If I were 7, 8 years old and my teacher told me to keep going on a problem that I really couldn't understand, it's frustrating. And so yeah, in the beginning of the year, I saw a lot of kids just kind of giving up, they didn't know what to do. They would sit, the worst part is if they sit quietly. I'd rather them complain and tell me something's wrong, but the worst ones were not the worst ones, but the worst situations were the kids who were just not saying anything, because that's where the teacher doesn't know. So it was really important for me to keep visible learning and that sort of the idea of the pit as an anchor. And I can probably say that it serves as an anchor till today. visible learning has really kind of provided me an umbrella to sort all the things that I am doing in the classroom. I remember in my first year of teaching at Kaimilo, actually that was last year, I was teaching 4th graders, and I just remember feeling really overwhelmed by just like the load of things that teachers have to do. So, you know, like honestly, kudos to all the teachers in the world, because I don't know how you guys do it. There's just so much to do. It's not just in the classroom but outside the classroom. It's not just at school but at home. So when I started kind of getting into visible learning this year, along with the rest of the school, I found that like it kind of, encompassed everything that we're doing here. And the reason why I think it does that is because it really provides a purpose for our students and for ourselves, like as teachers and as students. So yeah, like visible learning in terms of, sorry, I can't really think about this part, but yeah, like in terms of strategies and teaching practices, there was so much I needed to learn, I think, as a first-year teacher, and I learned a lot of it through other teachers, and it was about like having a mindset, and that mindset is really aligned to visible learning. Some of the things that I thought about was like, for example, assessment as feedback. I didn't really think about it as much until this year, where I saw really like positive changes coming from that, where you're not using like tests as just something you just like grade and you put in your grade book, but really it's like a way to get students, you know, on track and on the way to their own goals and to their own successes. Yeah.
I think for us, we're always trying to find ways to get all of the students to participate as a whole group, not seeing that separation between special needs students and the gen ed students. So we've used these strategies for all students. It might not be on the same content, but they're still all giving feedback. They're still all seeing themselves grow as learners. So for us, it's been a big shift. Like we mentioned before, it's not as much teacher control. It's more seeing the students own their journey. If they have a problem, they need to figure out what to do. So for us, it's been great to see that in all students.
I think just even the communication in class has improved, and having special needs students, communication is always a huge difficulty with them. So having the whole class with the similar expectations for communicating about their learning, it's been very helpful to those students. They're able to talk about their learning, they're able to ask each other questions, give each other feedback using criteria. It's very different from how it has been in the past, and seeing that growth in just a few months.
Right.
It's amazing.
Yeah. There's been a big shift. So I know we always are told, you know, have those high expectations, of course, and we do, but I think they've even surpassed some of our expectations. Having second grade in the past, we've seen the struggles with certain communication or how they're doing with their learning, and this year we've seen them just come so much further that I think they've done even better than we've expected throughout this journey that we've had with visible learning.
I think besides the original team that started this visible learning journey, the formation of our visible learning committee has probably been one of the most innovative things. These are teachers that on their own have become passionate about visible learning as they've learned from their own coaches what visible learning is about, have become excited about it, and actually applied to be part of this committee. And to hear them just sound so passionate, so excited about visible learning has been probably one of the most visible things that our school has done. Hearing the discussion in our coaching articulations as we continue to make the connections and to build our own knowledge, to develop each other on what visible learning is. The impact partner cycles, watching teachers that never interact because they're at different grade levels, has been exciting too, to see the power of those collegial conversations and watching people give both constructive and positive feedback on each other's teaching practices, which is not something that in Hawaii as a culture we do. Most people will say really, really nice things about what you do as a teacher, but won't approach things that they see could be potential roadblocks for visible learning. But giving that feedback, learning about how to give feedback was another great workshop that we had. So just watching these teachers grow and struggle with each other, and yet find the success, and celebrating those things has been great. Another really tangible thing that has unified actually our whole staff was our Know Thy Impact shirts. I think that has really brought our Ka'imiloa family together as an ohana, as a family, and you can see a sense of pride when people wear those shirts. And students have commented that they notice those shirts, and they know that when teachers are wearing that, they are aware that the teachers, the custodial staff, the office staff, that all of us have a vested interest in their future. And
the Impact Partners cycle is two colleagues working together to improve their teaching practices. It starts out by gathering student evidence, which is your baseline data, and then talking with each other to see exactly what the students' needs are, and then going from there how the teacher can practice or improve on her teaching to impact or improve on the students' learning.
A big change. I think our teachers, we have that fancy shirt, the Know Thy Impact shirt that they really wear, everybody wear pretty much religiously on Wednesdays. And our students actually uses the terminology a little bit more, not our younger ones yet, but I think our older ones do when I talk to them in guidance or with counseling. So I think it's made a big impact.
Another thing that our administrators did was they did an activity with us having to do with what great teachers do differently to promote a positive atmosphere around our campus. So the activity that they did was they passed it out to a teacher, and the teacher was supposed to read the whole book. And then if while they were reading, it made them think of another teacher on campus, they were to highlight the section that reminded them of that teacher and write a note to that teacher and then pass it on to that teacher.
Know Thy Impact is all about what I do in my planning, my collaborating with my peers, my administrators, what I do in the classroom, my mindset, my attitude about my students. That all has an effect on the students and their learning.
An effect size is a useful method for comparing results on different measures, such as standardized or teacher-made tests, student work, over time or between groups. So here at Ka'imiloa, we look at effect sizes as one way to see growth or achievement, and usually an effect size that equates to a year's growth has a 0.4 is considered 0.4 or higher effect size.
Like, now that I think about it, that's kind of what visible learning is all about, is like giving students the purpose in being in school. Because when I was in 3rd grade, my mom told me to go to school, and that's why I went. I had no reason to be there. But for these kids, and I think like we're seriously on the right track with this, is that these kids like are building their own purpose through visible learning, because they're seeing themselves as teachers, right? They're seeing themselves as the people responsible for their education. And that's huge, I think, because if they have that in like first, kindergarten to 6th grade, they're definitely going to have it in middle and high school, because that's where I get a little worried, to be honest, like in the high schools, especially when we went to the Student Voice Institute, like hearing the real trend from like younger kids to high school kids. You can see that the attitude is really changing in middle and high school. So I do get worried, but I do know that if they have this like really solid foundation early on, then hopefully that'll kind of like stay there, and they'll provide their own purpose through schooling, and then they'll do the things that they really want to do.